Hello, welcome to Anita the Pedagogue channel. Today we want to look at poetry analysis of Walt Whitman's poem, I Sit and Look Out. Let's set the ball rolling. For our lesson outline, we will look at a biography of the poet, the title, the structure of the poem, its analysis, the literary devices, the themes, and I'll share some likely examination questions with you. Let's begin with the biography of Walt Whitman. He was an American poet, essayist, and journalist. He is considered one of the most influential poets in American literature. He began his career as a printer's apprentice and later worked as a journalist and editor for various newspapers. In 1855, Whitman self-published his most famous work, Leaves of Grass, which he continued to revise and expand throughout his life. During the American Civil War, Whitman worked as a volunteer nurse tending to wounded soldiers in Washington, D.C. This experience greatly influenced his later poetry, which often dealt with themes of mortality and the human body. Whitman continued to write and publish poetry until he died in 1892. His work has profoundly influenced American poetry and literature, and he is often called the father of free verse. Now let's go on and look at the title, I Sit and Look Out. This title suggests that the poet is not an active participant in the world around him, but is merely an onlooker who looks at the world around him to observe it. By just saying, I sit and look out, he is not participating in anything, he is just observing. And this gives us an idea that the speaker is going to present to us ideas that he has observed over time. We move on to the poem I Sit and Look Out. I sit and look out upon all the sorrows of the world and upon all oppression and shame. I hear secret convulsion sobs from young men, at anguish with themselves, remorseful after deeds done. I see in low life the mother misused by her children, dying, neglected, gaunt, desperate. I see the wife misused by her husband. I see the treacherous seducer of young women. I mark the ranklings of jealousy and unrequited love, attempted to be hid. I see these sights on the earth. I see the workings of battle, pestilence, tyranny. I see martyrs and prisoners. I observe a famine at sea. I observe the sailors casting lots. Who shall be killed to preserve the lives of the rest? I observe the slights and degradations cast by arrogant persons upon laborers, the poor, and upon Negroes and the likes. All these, all the meanness and agony without end, I sitting, look out upon, see, hear, and I'm silent. This is indeed an emotional poem with a lot of imagery. Let's look at the structure and form of the poem. It is a one-stanza poem with 10 lines. It follows a free verse structure. Some of the lines are uneven, and also it does not adhere to a specific rhyme scheme or metrical pattern. There is a lot of punctuations used, full stops, commas, semicolons, and it also shows that some lines and ideas will often run on from one line to the other. He uses the first person narrative point of view as he makes reference to I sit and look out, I observe. He's speaking from his own personal opinion. And he also makes use of an omniscient narrative perspective, that is the all-knowing angle, because he is like he's sitting right at the top of the earth and looking upon and observing. So therefore the omniscient point of view. He uses the present tense and present progressive tense, I sit, I look, I observe, I sitting, to indicate that the observation he recounts are things that he does habitually. The poem's mode is that of concern and sorrow due to the use of vivid imagery. For example, the mother misused by her children, dying, neglected, gaunt, desperate. So these are very powerful words that definitely brings some sad and concerned emotion to the reader or listener. The diction is also basic and easy to understand English, and the tone shows the speaker is concerned, despite the irony in the last line where he says that upon all what he sees, hears, he's silent. He has taken the trouble upon himself to write, and so it's ironical for him to say he's silent. Let's move on at this point and look at the analysis of lines 1 to 5. The speaker of the poem begins lamenting about the world, focusing on the humiliation of the less privileged who are oppressed. He throws light on selected characters in the world he observes. He starts with the convulsive, suggesting the involuntary sadness and crying of young men due to the anger they feel because of the wrong things that they have done, and due to their guilty conscience, which is what taunting them. Also, he moves on to women in poverty-stricken communities who are not cared for by their children, and this has caused them a lot of pain, as the speaker describes them as dying, neglected, gaunt, and desperate. The speaker also laments about the poor treatment wives receive from their husbands, and also talks about as treacherous seducers of young women in line 4, showing how people show a lot of wickedness or treat others badly in the world he observes, what he sees. He sees the unfair treatment, how people are marginalized and treated badly by those whom should care for them. The speaker observed the world's inequalities as he says there is a rift between the upper class or rich in society and the poor. These he refers to as jealousy and unrequited love. Interestingly, these ranklings are hidden and not all realize it. However, he observed this unfair treatment of inequality and discrimination that people show. Between lines 6 and 10, the speaker continues to project his observation of the harm and suffering he sees at the battlefield, which brings about poverty and lack, the exhibition of wickedness leading to needless death, as he makes reference to martyrs, and the captivity of others as prisoners. And we can see that right from the line 6, I see the workings of battle, pestilence, tyranny. I see martyrs and prisoners. Again, his emphasis through the repetition of I see shows how powerless he, the speaker, is concerning these situations, since he only sees but takes no action, and so do others who also observe without action. In line 7, he directs his attention to fishermen who are faced with famine leading to hunger and poverty, and this is also compared to the hardship of sailors who have taken the lives of other sailors for their survivals. This is contrasted sharply to the stories of the poor, deprived and struggling, to the demeaning and oppression the wealth and upper class cause. So as we see famine at the sea, and we see sailors casting lots, we also see in lines 8, I observe the slights and degradations cast by arrogant persons upon laborers, the poor, and upon Negroes, and the likes. So even as this poverty is going on, there are some people whom he describes as arrogant persons who oppress their laborers, the poor, Negroes, and the like. The speaker, in his very final lines, says, The speaker in the final lines uses all to emphasize the endless pain and oppression he observes in the world. In the final line, he shows how inactive and powerless he is to these injustices and problems that all face in the world by saying he's silent, which is ironic because he's not silent but has used poetry to express his concerns. We move on now to the literary devices. There's been a lot of repetition of I see, also the use of alliteration, deeds done, murder misused, low light, the repetition of the consonant sounds D, M, and L. There's also the use of parallelism. We see I sit, I hear, I see, I mark, I observe. Okay, running on repeatedly. There's also the repetition of the words see, hear, all, look at. And the poem also makes use of a lot of imagery. For example, the mother misused by her children. There are some powerful words that gives us an image of how the women are feeling. They are dying, neglected gowns, and desperate. The use of personification. Look out upon all the sorrows of the world. Of course, the world cannot have that emotion of sorrow. So here there's the use of personification. There's also the use of pathetic fallacy. In I observe a famine at sea, I observe the sailors casting lots. So when there is famine at sea and then there are sailors that are casting lots, it's a sharp contrast. Then there's a use of irony in the very final line, see, hear, and I'm silent. Irony because the speaker has written down a poem and we don't consider that as being silent. It's a call to action. The use of hyperbole, that is the phrase all the meanness and agony without end. So the use of all and without end is definitely a lot of exaggeration of what the speaker observes, because definitely it's not every single person experiencing this without end. At this point, I want us to move on to the themes, action and the call for action. As the speaker remains silent, as we see in the last line, all the meanings and agony without end. Despite the suffering and havoc going on in the world, there seems to be no one ready to bring order to the world. Even though he highlights the happenings, he is a silent observer. The speaker's action of writing the poem indicates a call for action by all to, in their own ways, rise to put a stop to the suffering, discrimination, and injustice happening in the world around them. The second theme is the powerlessness of the oppressed. This theme expresses the issue of the characters in the poem who suffer. First, the mother who, after caring for her children, is neglected to die, and the wife who is treated wickedly by her husband. The Casanova is also highlighted and referred to as a treacherous seducer of women. The women in this poem are singled out and projected as vulnerable and therefore abused by others who come across as people with good intentions and relations or relatives. The poor, workers, and Negroes are discriminated against and oppressed by those in authority, leaving them vulnerable and powerless. The world's attitude in contemporary times is not much different, as there is still a lot of oppression in different parts of the world. The poet emphasizes these characters to show the sufferings that go on in the world. Our third theme is inequality, discrimination, and injustice. The speaker uses the poem to highlight issues of inequality between the rich, the upper class, and the working class or laborers. In addition, there are discrimination issues between the arrogant and oppressive leaders. The Negro, the poor, and the less privileged are usually oppressed. Again, in line 6, I see the workings of battle, pestilence, tyranny. I see martyrs and prisoners. The presence of wars and conflicts in the world brings about a lot of injustice which goes unpunished. The speaker throws light on these in the poem, hoping for measures to be taken as he sees himself as powerless. Let's go and look at some likely examination questions. What is the structure of the poem? Discuss the significance of the speaker's role as an observer in the poem. I sit and look out. Analyze the use of imagery in I Sit and Look Out and explain how it contributes to the portrayal of human suffering and societal injustices in the poem. Explore the theme of inequality in I Sit and Look Out. Compare and contrast the various forms of suffering depicted in I Sit and Look Out, such as poverty, oppression, and violence. Analyze the use of repetition in I Sit and Look Out. How does the repeated phrase I see contribute to the overall tone and message of the poem? How does Walt Whitman critique societal injustices and the mistreatment of marginalized individuals in the poem? Analyze the use of irony in the final line of I Sit and Look Out. See, hear, and I'm silent. What does this irony suggest about the speaker's perspective on the sorrows and injustices witnessed? This brings us to the end of our lesson, the analysis of the poem I Sit and Look Out by Walt Whitman. I hope this lesson was useful to you. Please do like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Until I come your way again, keep learning and be the best version of yourself.